You're listening to World of Empowerment Radio, your station for practical spirituality in a changing world. And here are your hosts, Aingeal Rose and Ahonu.
Hello, this is Aingeal Rose and my beloved Ahonu. This little excerpt from an Akashic Record group that you'll be listening to today is just a short question and answer about when babies come into abusive families. It's just a conversation with Source and what Source's answer was to the question, do babies know that they're being born into an abusive family?
Yeah, it's actually part of a bigger conversation that we had. It's actually about 2 hours long, but we've purposely broken it into little excerpts because you'll hear from the conversation that there's a lot of fun being had, but equally recognizing that it's a very serious conversation. And we've taken out a lot of the personal stuff too and left the nuggets of information. And this first section is about abusive families. We will go on to releasing more of this conversation that talks about indigo, crystal and rainbow children, for example, and the world that they're being born into. You want to say anything about that, Aingeal Rose?
No, because I don't remember what I said.
Yeah, because this is 2013. This is 10 years ago now, so it's quite a long time ago, but the information is just as valid now as it was then. So have a listen and enjoy.
And don't forget to leave your comments down below.
It's interesting when I was saying the prayer because I felt a group of beings come in and I felt this wonderful, beautiful, almost like fresh air. And they were like just showing me babies. I saw little chains that connect them all, little golden rings that connect all the babies. And it felt that they brought almost like the breath of God, like new breath of God to the planet. It was almost like saying, yeah, that's why we keep having babies, because they're, they bring a breath of God to the planet. Okay, who wants to start? You want to start?
How much certainty is attached to the ability of a child to pick its parent? What I mean specifically by that is the spirit of a baby is hovering around and saying, all right, I've spotted the parents that I'm going to write. There they are. They're there in Kimmage, Dublin 12, and I'm watching them. And they're at it, and I'm about to. Now, let's say, what I want to know is that spirit baby, let's say, has earmarked, right, if I incarnate into that family, I'm going to get these particular lessons, or I'm going to encounter these particular issues that I need to resolve myself, or I've, let's say, karmic issues with them, so I'm coming to fix them, or whatever. Now, let's say then that couple, whatever, decided to hate each other in that moment, and she ran off and he went off the other direction, or the husband came home and the guy climbed out the window down the way.
He's a great dreamer.
But let's say it didn't happen, right?
The conception didn't happen. So is it the case that that spirit baby then would go to China and say, I feed tiny mom, I know.
She's the baby.
And encounter the spirit.
I'm find somewhere now.
Yeah.
That's the way.
So what is the actual question?
Yeah. Like how predetermined is it?
All right. Okay, this is right now.
The population has doubled in the last 30 years, so there's probably plenty of choice, really.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing happen is that the soul knows before it's going to be born who his parents are, and the parents know as well. I feel like that's a contract that's made well before the parents are born and before the child's born. And I feel like they all know each other. As you're talking about it, what they keep saying to me is each soul knows the other soul. They all know each other. It isn't random like that. It's actually planned well ahead. And it's planned from the other side who's going to be who your parents are going to be and what your soul contracts are going to be together and what the best case scenario is.
I see. Okay. There's a sense of inevitability around it too. That, in other words, if a mother finds herself pregnant, even though she may not want it, it's still an inevitability.
And it's all been prearranged.
Even if it's an abusive or abused and things like that.
Yeah, I'll ask that in a second about abuse. But I do feel that contracts can be changed too. But what they are telling me, though, is it really is kind of mapped out from the other side. But then whatever, anybody can change their mind about a contract anytime they want to. That would be a case where maybe a conception would not happen. Or let's say, the mother gets an abortion, changes her mind. You can change your mind. But what they are saying is that it isn't an accident. The souls know each other before they come in. Go ahead. Your question was, kids come into an abusive house. I'm not feeling that they want to be abused. But what I do feel is that the child is actually, believe it or not, the stronger soul. And I feel like the child is actually coming in to be a facilitator for the potential for healing for the parent who's doing the abuse. I feel like they're saying most often, so I'm going to give it a 90%. I think there may be some cases where interesting karma is going on, but most often the child is actually there to provide some type of healing energy to the situation. So they tell me that that child is actually the stronger soul because it's putting itself in a situation where it knows it's going to be hurt. But a soul would only choose that if it was a strong soul and if it had the ability to actually be holding a particular energy in the hope that they're actually saying that the abuser could be rehabilitated in some way. Now, it's interesting because what they're saying is that even if the abusive parent doesn't change, in other words, they don't stop abusing, the fact that innocent energy or that stronger soul energy was actually present in the family. I feel like there's multiple reasons like that soul can be coming in also to actually create a type of a little link with other siblings as well. So it is donating a certain type of energy to the abuser that even if the abuser can't get it in that life, it offers a certain type of frequency to their energy field. We had this discussion when people would learn Reiki in terms of sending absent Reiki. Well, if the person's unconscious, you send it to the higher self. Yeah. And it can hang out in their fields until they're ready to accept it. Yeah. And it may not be this life. So I feel like that child is coming there to facilitate a type of healing or to offer or donate. And they would have to be a very strong soul to even be willing to do that. And it's interesting that most of the souls that do that are very angelic in nature, which means that they have a particular type of purity about them that on the one hand you'd say that makes them more vulnerable, but actually no, it's the reason why they're stronger. You understand? So unfortunately though, because we forget when we come here that a child obviously is asleep. They don't actually have a memory of the contract, but I feel like they are actually providing some type of energy to the soul, even if the soul can't use it that life or maybe not even till other lives. Yeah. Okay. So the other type is that there are children who come in who have karma to work through with certain individuals. So in those cases, you'd probably need to read their individual records to see what the relationship is, but it feels to me that it would always be some unresolved life that they've had. Okay. So those seem to be the two main types of situations. We're also wanting to say too that we have to remember that love is always, in terms of soul, what they're telling me is before souls come in, you have to understand that the underlying it is love is always the underlying reason for any kind of incarnation between souls. And even though a soul can go through a very terrible experience, it knows before it comes in what it's doing, even though we don't see it. So they're wanting to say that to remember that souls are forever. Let's just say most souls. I do believe you can lose your soul, but not your spirit. They're two different things. They're saying that actually children that come in and are the effect of abusive people, sometimes it's even a contract to change a law. You know what I mean? Sometimes they'll put themselves in an abusive environment in order to have it be discovered and publicized. You know what I mean? So it seems like they know what they're doing from a high level, even though they forget when they're here. Okay?
But in that forgetting when they're here, that same child might go through huge adult traumas and memories and difficulties and as a result of that. So does it know also that price it has to pay?
Well, it does. They're saying to remember that souls aren't babies. You know what I mean? Like even though they come in as a baby, a soul really isn't a baby. That's right. I think what happens, and it's an unfortunate thing, either they're showing it to me on two levels. And on the one level, when you come here and you forget, yes, it looks very tragic. And the soul who has donated themselves for that purpose obviously doesn't remember they did, and consequently can feel very damaged by it. But still in all, when they return home, and their mentors are saying, well done, good job, and they'll say, yeah, it was hard, it sucked. That there's that bigger picture still. Okay? So because we don't have all the information, we only see things from one level. And it's unfortunate that there are souls that are so tormented, because they're basically telling me that any abuser is a tormented soul. You'd have to know their past life history as well to understand how they got to the point they're at, okay? But still in God's creation, God loves the tormentor as much because God just wants everyone to return home and to know that they're loved. And that goes for everybody. So we do play difficult roles, and it's unfortunate that souls are that way where you have to play those drastic roles, but it seems to me that that's part of what's going on.
We hope you enjoyed that. It was a look into our personal group Akashic Record meetings, which we have now begun again after the great pandemic. And we're resuming them again. So look to our website to find the calendar for when these group Akashic Records happen. And they are happening far more frequently now than they have done for the last couple of years.
Yes, and we're no longer in Kimmage, Ireland, which is where that recording was from.
That's right.
So I hope this might spark some interesting conversation amongst you people. And like I said, leave a comment below, and we'll see you next time.
Blessings and bye for now.
You can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and on our website at worldofempowerment.com.
Don't miss an episode. Hit the subscribe button now.